Hey gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Smash the like, hit subscribe. We've got a doozy of a show. We're going to jump right in. You know the routine. Like, we're going to skip that because we've got so many great things to show. Let's jump right in. Let's go. Thanks, gang.
Resuming debate. Reprise de débat. L'honorable chef de...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, official opposition.
And I understand we're leading 4-0 in the big game today. And we are truly Team Canada, as you can see, with the beautiful jersey right behind me. And, Mr. Speaker, imagine if we could be Team Canada when it comes to automotive purchases and production. Imagine the satisfaction you'd have if you drove your new car off the lot knowing that not only did you get a great price for a great automobile, so that you can do your full-time job as a chauffeur taking your kids to their hockey games, but that every penny from your purchase went to support Canadian workers, to put food on the tables of Canadian families, buying Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian plastic, and Canadian assembled automobiles. That is the mission. That is how we make our country affordable, safe, and strong. We must reindustrialize our country. We must unleash the production of steel, aluminum, plastic, minerals, and other production for which we should have a massive natural advantage. That would then, and only then, Canadian paychecks would grow. Then, and only then, Canada would be affordable and autonomous. Then, and only then would we restore the industrial powerhouse that used to characterize the Canadian economy. We have a plan as Conservatives to bring about that industrial powerhouse and the affordable made-in-Canada vehicles that I just described. It's a plan for quick permits, low-cost energy, and low taxes to make this the biggest and most open economy anywhere in the world in which to produce, to make, to fix, to move, to dig, and to deliver for Canadian consumers. We have the resources and the workforce that no other country can match, and yet, after 10 years of Liberal government, we've had the worst economic growth in the G7, the worst productivity, and the worst investment track record. $500 billion of net investment has fled our country for the United States of America as Liberal taxes and anti-development policies drive investors stampeding out of our country. Automotive production under this Liberal government has fallen by half, from roughly 2.2 million cars a year to 1.2 million. And all of that happened while the present-day Liberal finance minister was actually the industry minister. The new government looks an awful lot like the old government. This Liberal Prime Minister promised that he would be different. But here we are a year later, and what do we have? There have been grand speeches, announcements, signing ceremonies of unenforceable declarations, but it's all an illusion. Look at the results. He promised to negotiate a win with the U.S. by July 21st. Still no win, still no deal, still no jobs. He promised that we'd have the strongest growth in the G7. Our economy is now shrinking, according to Bloomberg. He promised affordable food, but grocery prices are now rising faster in Canada than in any other G7 country. Real GDP in automotive manufacturing has fallen 10% in November. He promised auto jobs. He's lost 5,000 of them. In fact, manufacturing is down 37,000 jobs since he took office, promising to make Canada strong. 5,000 of those jobs are in automotive production. We've seen 3,000 job losses in Brampton, where I had the, I want to say, the honor of standing in the rain with the great Unifor workers locked out of their facility. 1,200 at the GM Cami plant, 500 at GM's plant in Oshawa, 725 at Bacard au Québec. Sure, we can blame President Trump's unfair tariffs, and we do. But the question is, what are we doing about what we can control? Because as the Prime Minister said, and he's right on this point, no one can control what President Trump does or says. So I agree with the Prime Minister, but what we can control is what we do on this side of the border. And here's what this Prime Minister's response is. He wants to take $2.3 billion away from Canadian taxpayers, including Canadian auto workers, and spend it on a subsidy that goes exclusively to foreign-made, especially American-made cars. So while President Trump tariffs our automobile sector, this Liberal Prime Minister subsidizes the American auto sector. Now, let's be very clear. Liberals are claiming that somehow the rebates will be used for Canadian automobiles. Well, here are the facts. In 2023, under the previous Liberal EV rebate program, pretty much the same as the one we have now, 99% of the subsidies went to foreign-made EVs. 31% went to the U.S., 25% to China, 19% to Japan, 16% to South Korea, 1% to Canada. Let's be clear. Only 1% of EVs purchased in Canada are made in Canada. And that is after $52 billion of taxpayer subsidies for the EV supply chain. It doesn't seem to matter how much this Liberal government throws away in handouts and subsidies, they cannot turn those dollars into enough production to satisfy even a tiny fraction of the Canadian marketplace. Now Liberals say, that's the present, but look to the future. That too is an illusion, Mr. Speaker. Here's the reality. EV purchases are in free fall. Between December of 2024 and November of 2025, the market share of EVs in Canada plummeted almost by half, from 18% to 11%. Canadians are buying vastly fewer electric vehicles. In dollar terms, the sales have decreased in that period of time by 37%. That is absolute free fall. In fact, the reality is that if you were trying to predict the future, and by the way, I don't believe that governments are able to do that, but if you were looking simply based on the trajectory, it is clear that electric vehicles are not on track at this time to overtake the market, not even close. Our conservative approach allows the free market to decide which vehicles get purchased. Let consumers choose what they want to buy. And we know that they will be biased in favor of the lowest price and the highest quality, and those vehicles happen to be, in many cases, Canadian-made internal combustion vehicles. Hear, hear. That's the reality. And we have a plan to make sure that the maximum amount of content in those vehicles is made by our Canadian workers. We're going to re-industrialize Canada. We're going to make this into an industrial powerhouse, Mr. Speaker. And yes, we're going to make it possible for you to buy that car and know it goes to Canadians. Because, you know, it drives me crazy to think of the laid-off auto worker who's looking at his severance right now. 50% of it gone in tax, withholding tax, knowing that his tax dollars will subsidize the very American-made vehicles that are made in a country that's tariffed him out of a job. He doesn't have to live like that. We have a plan. We will unleash Canadian production. We'll take the GST off Canadian-made automobiles, saving you $2,500 on a Canadian car. This would include, for example, the Chrysler Pacifica, the Chrysler Grand Caravan, the Dodge Charger, the Toyota RAV4, the Lexus NX, the Honda Civic, the CR-V, the numerous Ford products, the Chevy Silverado, and many more. We'll get rid of the industrial carbon tax on Canadian steel, aluminum, and plastic to make it with Canadian steel. We'll get rid of the capital gains tax on reinvestments in Canadian auto plants. We will end the new liberal fuel tax so that we can move our parts around more quickly and economically, because low-cost energy is the key to reindustrializing our country. These are solutions, positive ideas to make Canada an incredible industrial powerhouse where patriotic Canadians can save money and save jobs at the same time, and where Team Canada not only wins out on the ice, but wins at the auto dealership, that wins on our streets, that wins in our factories. Canada first, Canada always.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our auto strategy associates itself with stronger emission standards that are the prevailing in California and prevailing in Europe, and is part of a strategy that will decrease our dependence on internal combustion engines, increase our adoption of electrification, and is good for the environment and is good for the climate. Not in the motion, but in the debate, we now hear that the Conservatives are opposed to California-style emission standards. That, incidentally, is the position of the U.S. administration, which is now saying it doesn't want any emission standards whatsoever. So my question to the Leader of the Opposition is he in support of California-style, European-style, and Canadian emission standards, or no emission standards?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
We're in favor of Canada. Hear, hear. And that means low-cost energy. I don't want high-priced European or Californian taxes on consumers and industry. That's how you kill jobs. That's how you make people poor. Europe is rapidly running away from the radical net zero agenda that the member just talked about. The Germans tried it. They're having to reverse themselves completely because they're being shut down. The English, for example, in the United Kingdom, they realize that high-priced electricity, because of these same radical net zero policies that the Prime Minister has embraced and written about, are impoverishing the working class and deindustrializing society. So no, we don't want any of these foreign policies he wants to impose. We want a Canadian policy to reindustrialize and make Canada affordable and autonomous.
Hear, hear. Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. L'honorable député de Pierre Boucher.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, les Patriotes Verchères. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the motion, I noticed that in Clause C, the Leader of the Official Opposition is asking for the government to reduce taxes on severance payments to workers laid off by GM. Well, that seems like a very generous idea. So given that he says that he wants to support Canada and workers, why didn't he think about all the workers at PACCAR who lost their jobs in Sainte-Thérèse? Why is he ignoring them? And my second question, Alberta produces oil. Quebec produces electricity. In fact, Quebec is the biggest market for EVs in Canada. Does the Leader of the Opposition understand that his motion is an attack on the electrification of transport and that Quebecers care about EVs and that, in fact, the Leader of the Opposition is attacking Quebec here? I'd like to thank the member for his question, but not for his research, because he made a mistake. We didn't say that when it comes to the payments for people who were laid off, we said that we should not be withdrawing that money at the very beginning of the year, forcing the workers to wait a year before getting that money. The problem is that when someone gets a lump sum payment when they lose their job, is that people end up in a much higher tax bracket. So they end up seeing a lot of that money being clawed back, and they have to wait 14 months to get the money back. So we are saying that workers should be able to keep that money, and then they'll be able to get by better. That's my first point. And then on the second point, the member has lost touch with the regions of Quebec where people care about their gas-powered trucks. We care about Quebec consumers, and we think they can decide for themselves without subsidizing American cars.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, workers in Windsor, Canada's automotive capital, are being hit by unjustified U.S. tariffs, while Liberal subsidies and Canadian tax dollars are paying.
All right, gang, we've got more interesting things to watch than this. That was very interesting. We'll get right back to it.
Minister,
Watch
your
this.
budget unveiled a plan to eliminate 40,000 jobs in the
This is
federal
crazy.
public service by 2028-2029. Since then, 68,000 public servants have received the notice that they may be eligible to apply for the early retirement incentive as a mechanism to eliminate these jobs. Does Treasury Board have an estimate of how many of those 68,000 public servants will apply for the early retirement incentive?
Watch this.
Thank you for your question, and I welcome my critic from. I'm looking forward to have that coffee. Our teams are working on scheduling that. Your question is on workforce adjustment. We have sent 68,000 letters to the people who may qualify for that program. There is certain options. We don't know how many will come forward, and that program will roll out after the Budget Implementation Act gets the royal assent. So at this point, we just, as per the bargaining agreement, we have sent those letters to them, and we'll have more to say when we have clarity on that.
Okay, thank you for that response. If not, then, if you're not aware as to the number, how are departments organizing their job losses and restructuring if the government doesn't even have an estimate, if you don't have an estimate of how many public servants will voluntarily retire? That's a pretty important number for workforce adjustment planning.
We have sent those letters, and we don't know how many. I mean, we know how many qualifies, but we don't know how many will be eligible, because not everyone who's been sent the letter will be considered for that program. There is, certain criteria. There's a skills and seniority. I'll ask because it's more technicality gets involved. I'll ask my deputy to
That's
give
fine,
you.
Minister. Thank you so
For
much.
the clarity,
Yeah.
it is for your benefits and the Canadians.
Minister,
who are
I don't have a
watching.
lot of time,
I
and
think
you're not
it's a
providing
very
me with a
important
lot of
questions.
information. I'm going to move on. Thank you
Okay.
very much. In December, you announced the Public Service Pension Fund had an unpermitted surplus of $900 million, and that you were moving this money into the general revenues of government. Where will that money be spent, please?
Can I ask my colleague to repeat your question, please?
In December, you announced the Public Service Pension Fund had an unpermitted surplus of $900 million, and that you were moving this money into the general revenues of the government. You've seen this before. I'm sure you were briefed when you received this position. Where will this particular allotment be spent, President?
So, in that pension funds, if we have any surplus of uncertain, there's a threshold, and if it's over that threshold, that money moves into trust funds. I could ask my deputy to clarify a little bit more for your benefit and the Canadians who are watching at home.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The money has indeed been brought back in. It's been invested, but there's been no decisions taken yet in terms of how that money will actually be spent.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on again. In 2023, Minister Anand announced that departments would be ordered to find savings of $15 billion. However, the details were scant. Unsurprisingly, the 2024 and 2025 Public Accounts of Canada indicate that those savings have yet to be achieved. On Monday, I asked your department whether proposed savings announced in the Comprehensive Expenditure Review would be realized, or if it would be dealt a similar fate to the 2023 ill-hearted attempt of savings. A senior official actually stated, "I don't think you will see a decrease as compared to what was announced in the budget." Do you agree with that statement, President?
What I can tell you, that the review, comprehensive expenditure review, will achieve savings of $9 billion in 2026. 2027, $10 billion in 2027 to 2028, and $13 billion in 2028-2029.
Okay, these are all projections. As I indicated, your government failed in the 2023 objectives, and I just received on Monday from a senior official a lack of confidence that these numbers will also be achieved. 100 days ago, exactly, the government unveiled the initial details of the CER, the comprehensive expenditure review in the budget, yet here we are today with your own department stating your own spending reductions will not be met despite the continuous forecast you're putting forward. And this isn't me doubting your savings, it's your own senior officials, which should be very concerning for you. So how do you expect Canadians to believe your government will actually lower spending as you've promised if your own Treasury Board officials don't?
I don't know where that coming from to you, but what I know, the proposals we received from
it's your Comptroller General. You should probably have a conversation with her.
Can I respond to that
brief
question?
response, please.
Yeah. So those proposals for comprehensive expenditure review, we received from 102 organizations, other than DND, CBSA, CSIS, RCMP. All organizations, they have put forward this plan, and I believe those are the organizations who are delivering services to Canadians. They're responsible, and they have put forward this plan, and I'm confident that we will
Thank you. We're going to go to Mr. Gasparo, please.
Beaucoup.
All right, gang, we're not going
thank
to
you,
Gasparo.
Minister.
We're going to skip through that, and sorry, you've got to watch me for a moment while I get to the next round, because we've got Kelly Block going to cut this asshole up. She's a smart lady. She reminds me of my mom when she was younger and healthier. Anyhow,
from any
Kelly
federal
Block
law except the criminal
cut
code.
this
So I'm
asshole up.
perhaps following up on some of the questions that my colleague, Ms. Goudreau, had. My question is, what is the point of having a parliament pass laws when ministers can just give connected insiders exemptions from those laws?
Thank you for the questions. I think
you
it's
for the question.
there is
Asshole.
legal bindings on certain doing those innovative experiments. I think for that reason that this was proposed in this Budget Implementation Act, and because it's a technicality, I can ask my for your benefit, it's clarity, because this is important to understand what it is and why it's being there. So I'm going to ask it just 30 seconds from my deputy to give you
30
clarity.
seconds.
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, so there is not exemption from any law. The exemptions have to be relevant to the legislation or regulation the minister bringing forward the proposal is responsible for, so they're boxed in. Secondly, there is no exemption from the Conflict of Interest Act. That still applies. So the goal here is to allow ministers to create a sandbox for innovation and experimentation within the rule set that they are responsible for. And that drives experimentation and gives a chance to test things out. I know there's a lot of confusion about this rule set, but
I would suggest that, if you're watching Finance Committee and some of the questioning of some of the ministers there, the only law that doesn't provide exemptions is the Criminal Code. So here's another question for you. If there is no provision in the use of these powers that would exempt a minister from using them, there is no provision that exempts a minister from using them while Parliament is prorogued. So why is there no restriction on the use of these powers when Parliament is prorogued?
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a lot of misconception around regulatory sandboxes. This tool is there to help regulators test new ideas safely before deciding on permanent rule change. So it is.
Thank you.
It is.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I understand that you have some talking points that you have to provide back to us around these regulatory sandboxes, but what it says in the BIA is clear. And I think that parliamentarians are very concerned when you start to provide these kind of powers. They're called the King Henry VIII powers. So Canadians are concerned, parliamentarians are concerned.
Go ahead.
Thank you, my colleague. I think it's your.
Sorry,
I don't want to get into that.
I thought you were going to answer the question, so maybe I can start my question instead.
I was going to talking
Minister,
point, so just
Minister,
respond to that. Okay.
At the last meeting, I was asking about this new exemption power, and which some are calling the King Henry Clause, and whether it would reduce red tape for small and medium-sized business. And I mean, it's a disaster right now out there in BC, 10% bankruptcy, and we find out it doesn't simplify a federal form, it doesn't shorten approval times, it doesn't shorten reporting requirements, and yet it's the only concrete red tape reduction measure in the entire budget. Like when they're at this point, like why this? Why just for the big guys? Because I know you talked about shred was going to be wonderful for small guys. Like no coffee shop, no plumber, no construction workers ever going to use shred. Why just for the big guys?
Sure. I understand my colleague is more interested in getting the clips for their writing rather than
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you, President.
Sure. I think I'm
sorry.
here to
I'm
respond
going to interrupt
questions,
you, sir. That's
so,
inappropriate to make such a comment back at a member for a straightforward question. Please respond.
I think it's if I'm here to respond to questions, that I should be given an opportunity to respond to that.
Our Minister, I'm going to interrupt here again. It's not the time to respond. It's the comment about the clip, I think, is rather demeaning and inappropriate. But please, I will allow you extra time. Please go ahead and respond, sir.
Chair, if you like, you want to give me that written script that I can read to in my response? That's what you want?
We'll allow you time. We'll allow you time to respond.
This guy is an asshole. Like, look at him. He's a Palestinian intelligence plant, allegedly, and a coward, and he's picking on women with his comb over.
So I think it's when she asked a question, I should be given the time to respond to that question. Look, there's a lot of misconception. Regulatory sandboxes is help regulators test new ideas before deciding on government permanent rule changes. So, can you give me the water? I have to drink.
Pussy needs some water.
Ms. Suds, please.
All right, gang, we're going to skip ahead to some more because right there was going to be Jenna Suds, like, greasing his pole, like the suck-ass former disgraced minister she is.
I guess just right off the bat, kind of picking up on a different question I was asked earlier, how many regulations have been either changed or removed because of the regulatory sandboxes that have existed in transport and health for the past 6 years?
Thank you, Chair. Just for the clarity, you're asking overall red tape review or particularly just for the sandboxes used?
Just for the sandboxes used. I mean, you said there was one used earlier in one of the departments. You didn't specify what about the other department, but I would like to know that if this was such a resounding success for the past 6 years that you have to bring this in for every other department, surely to goodness you can tell us how many regulations have been changed or repealed because of regulatory sandboxes.
It was just one time it was used, and one department. It's in two departments, Transport Canada and Health Canada. And it was used by one department, and I'm gonna, if you allow me, I can ask Bill to give you clarity on that, how many were removed or not. So just for your benefit.
20 seconds.
Yeah.
How many?
Yeah, please.
I cannot give you an answer how many, but we can talk about the freight train inspection is one example where their rules were successfully tested and changed. And Mike, is there another one you want to add in the 5 seconds I've left you?
So it's used more than once then?
So with respect to regulatory sandboxes, those provide a narrow exemption as opposed to repealing an entire regulation. The evidence then collected in a regulatory sandbox is then is used to then inform the regulator for subsequent amendments.
Okay, so were there any subsequent amendments, though?
Yes, absolutely. I can provide some examples. With respect to, for example, the e-manifest that the Secretary mentioned, Transport Canada ran a regulatory sandbox in 2020 to test the use of e-shipping documents, whether they could be used to safely replace paper documents. So this allowed Transport Canada to then use that to evolve the transportation of dangerous good regulations into greater alignment with international standards.
Okay, thank you very much. Minister, with the early retirement incentive that is in place, where is the money going to come from for that incentive?
That would be from Public Service Pension Fund.
Is it the overages from it that'll be used for it because the plan still has to be utilized and made whole? So where exactly within that fund is that going to come from?
As I said, it's Public Service Pension Fund. It'll be coming from there.
Not the overages?
I mean, can you give a clarity of your question, please?
Well, I mean, the pension fund has done well, and there's extra money there, right? And normally that would go back into general revenue, but is that money being used to make the taxpayer whole, or is that money going to be used to fund your early retirement buyout?
I think that, again, there's in your question, there's a certain mix-up, but it's what I can say that it's not that money is coming from Public Service Pension Fund to deal with the early retirement. And if you want a bit more clarity, I can ask my team to respond to that.
Thank you,
You
Mr.
don't know,
Chair.
though, the minister.
Sorry?
I can be really
I'm sorry,
quick.
I know, but
I can be really quick,
Really
here,
quick.
Mr. Chair. The excessive surplus that was removed is still in the CRF. There is still a surplus in the pension plan itself. As the minister said, the early retirement incentive, if approved by Parliament, would be funded from the pension plan, not from the money taken out.
Okay, thank you very much. Minister, you said earlier 16,000 FTEs are going to be reduced. We have seen reports that it's actually as high as 40,000. Can you confirm whether it's full-time, whether it's part-time, or what are the exact implications of the 40,000 people that will lose their job?
Chair, what I said is 16,000 full-time equivalents position will be reduced over three years.
Okay, so no part-time jobs will be lost?
What I said is 16,000 full-time equivalents. That's it's in my statement.
So the other reported 40,000 from other departments is wrong?
I can say what I gave my statement. You referred to my statement, earlier statement, so I'm sticking with that. So your question, because these are detailed answers and you will not like them, so I'm sticking with that. Because if you want clarity, we can go on.
We're out of time, but Mr. Matthews, you look like you want to respond really
Just
quickly.
One quick addition for clarity. Because of the way the reductions will work, if there are 10 jobs that are identical, but only 7 of them will remain, all 10 people will get a letter saying your job may be impacted. So you will see the number of letters issued actually exceeds the number of jobs that will be reduced.
Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Rochefort, and
All
we
right,
have a
guys, I think we can jump to a round that has more of him just dodging questions because, like, he's so obnoxious too.
actually we'll be able to do a couple 5-minute rounds. Mrs. Block, and then Ms. Church.
Back to Kelly Block.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm not sure that I'm going to take up 5 minutes. However, they do pass very quickly, as we are very aware and often are trying to keep answers short. So I want to go back to the intervention that my colleague Ms. Goudreau made, and I have to agree with her when it comes to these sandboxes that as you refer to them, that are included in Part 2 of C-15. And I would have to say that the sandboxes, which I believe are subsections 3 and 7 in this Act, are at best ambiguous and only require the agreement of one other minister within a cabinet, which I think would be fairly easy to find. And so when you think about the fact that you are providing the ability for a minister to exempt a company, an individual, at their discretion, what you're actually doing is providing that minister to pick winners and losers. And so my question for you is this: if the laws and regulations that we have in place stand in the way of innovation, competitiveness, and economic growth to the point where ministers have to provide exemptions, why are you not simply just repealing them?
Thank you for the question, Chair. As I said, there is a misconception around about regulatory sandboxes, and these regulation sandboxes is to help regulations keep pace with innovation. That I think there is rigorous regulations around them. Minister has to justify why they're being used. So I think every minister will have that. We're providing this tool that they cannot just unilaterally use it without giving a justification. It has to justify. They have to justify before using that. So I think it's
Minister Ali,
yeah.
you actually haven't answered my question, which is fine. So I'm going to actually move on and just follow up on the suggestion that your deputy minister made in terms of reviewing the CER. And I'm wondering if we could book 1 or 2 meetings to look at this after the estimates.
Yeah. Let me address that. We actually have an invite out for the president to come back on the CER. Mr. Matthews and others, you mentioned about having a couple other departments. Can we, besides the meeting with the president, the 1 hour with the president and secretary, the president and the secretary board that we agreed to, can we just add a couple then? After, because we have the estimates and we're filled up with this budget stuff. Great. We'll follow up with everyone after, but thanks. Sorry, the clock has restarted.
Oh, that's okay. How much time did I have left?
You have about a minute and 30 seconds.
I don't know, do any of my colleagues have a question they'd like to follow up with that they perhaps didn't get to ask with that 1 minute?
Yeah.
Great.
Minister, are you aware of any requests that were denied for a regulatory sandbox from either the Department of Health or the Department of Transport in the last 6 years?
I'm not aware. I can ask my team that if they are aware.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I would just point to a specific provision in the proposal that specifically means the minister is not compelled to even consider a regulatory sandbox.
Okay, but the whole point of this is the minister has said this is absolutely necessary to have in place for innovation and how important this is going to be going forward. Yet you're telling me for 6 years there was only one request, and that's it.
No reviews.
Okay. There were a number of regulatory sandboxes that Transport Canada implemented, and it helped significantly with the evolution of regulatory frameworks. That included, for example, shifting from paper documents to electronic documents, which helps small businesses quite a bit. Also helped introduce safe introduction of artificial intelligence with respect to railway operations, a number of other important innovation as well.
Okay. Well, let me interrupt. Sorry. Well, our time's up, but what we had heard earlier, there was just one use, but you're saying there's several. Maybe you can provide in writing, because we're running out of time, provide in writing to the committee all the times it has been used for health and transport? If that's okay.
All right, we're going to flip and see if we've got one more Conservative round, because I think there is. No, there's not. So what have we got next? This.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to both the witnesses for the important work that you do and for reinforcing the call Conservatives have been making to reverse the proposed discrimination against students based on the kind of institution they're studying at. It certainly doesn't make sense to me at a time when we're dealing with skill mismatches as part of the challenges contributing to youth unemployment, that we would rule out grants to anyone studying at a career college at the same time as offering those grants to anyone studying any program at a university, making distinctions that have nothing to do with labor market needs and are instead focused on institution type, I think is a big mistake, and it goes in the wrong direction. We need to be giving esteem to all careers and encouraging young people to look at the labor market and to consider careers that are according with the needs of the labor market, rather than making decisions based on kind of the esteem of the type of institution. So I think that's what I hear you saying, and I thank you for raising these points. Ms. Love, I wanted to start with you. In the context of the youth unemployment crisis, we're talking about there have been instances of skill and training mismatches. And what I hear you saying is that dental hygienist is a career where there is demand, especially in remote areas. So for young people thinking about where are the careers that are going to lead to employment, that yours is one area that they should be looking at because of demand in the market. Is that correct?
Absolutely. There's currently 41 educational programs in Canada for dental hygiene. We have 9 private programs and 32 public programs. 10 are unaccredited. 9 of the programs are in Quebec, and 1 is in Saskatchewan, which is seeking accreditation, but it's a brand new program. So 63%, though, of those writing the NDHCE, which is the exam to become a dental hygienist, graduate from a private school. As I mentioned in my remarks, it's the caps on the public programs, the caps on the international students has really impacted their financial viability. One dental assisting program in BC has already closed, and we're worried about the future of the public dental hygiene programs in Canada. But also to cut grants for private schools, that could impact the enrollment of private institutions as well. With the CDCP, the demand has never been higher for dental hygienists.
Right. So just jump in. You're talking. The situation now is there is demand for dental hygienists.
Absolutely.
There's a need there, but it sounds like you're describing a situation in the future where things could get worse. Public programs are under pressure. They're losing spots, potentially closing. Already, almost 2/3 of students are coming through private programs. So if there's closures on the public side, that 63% is going to go up further, which means that whatever people might think ideologically about the difference between public and private, the reality is just going to be to meet the demand for dental hygienists. Those private programs are going to be extremely important, and the changes proposed around grants are going to make it very difficult for middle and low income students to opt for that, and they might choose another career path instead that may respond less to the demand in the market.
Absolutely, you're correct, because dental hygiene, the Canadian Dental Care Plan is a fantastic program. The demand is very, very high. Canadians appreciate it. They're seeing care. We have recent survey results, which we're releasing in a few weeks, that say that demand is higher than ever, and people are actually receiving care. Dental hygienists can practice in rural or remote communities. They have mobile practices. 40% of our independent hygienists go and practice with a van or a retrofitted ambulance to provide care in those communities where there isn't care. And so any cuts to their educational opportunities would have an impact on the future supply of oral health care delivery for Canadians.
Yeah, thank you. That's very important, and I think quite concerning that in a time of existing shortages, that government policy is exacerbating those shortages for the future in a number of ways. Mr. Sangster, you talked about the problem with the budget provision. I want to also ask you about the framing of the budget provision, because the section that proposes cutting these grants identifies this as being about quote-unquote integrity issues. So when you say we're trying to address integrity issues, but then you propose a policy that sweeps all career colleges, all private for-profit institutions in. I think it's important to ask you to respond to that kind of critical and borderline slanderous framing of the whole universe of career colleges that exist in this country.
Thank you for the question. It is a unique situation that we often face, where their misconceptions about our sector are carried on to some of these other broader conversations. We saw it in the international.
All right, gang, we're going to cross over to something a bit more interesting, I think. It's Mark Gerritsen, who is one of the biggest pricks in the whole Liberal caucus. He's just pompous. Then we'll skip over to question period right away.
Themselves with the reality of the world that we're in, and the fact that our car industries are converting and they're changing and they're evolving. I find it. I want to propose something to you, Mr. Speaker. I want you to imagine for a second, Mr. Speaker, that EVs are already the norm. Okay, I want you to pretend for a second, Mr. Speaker, that gas vehicles don't exist. I just want you to pretend that the only thing that exists are EV vehicles, okay? So picture this, Mr. Speaker. Every morning you wake up, your car's been plugged in, you got a full battery. You drive around, there's no noise, there's no fumes, there's no rumbling traffic. The streets are cleaner, the air's cleaner. Kids walking to school can breathe cleaner air as a result of this, okay? I also think about it for a second. Everybody's driving EVs. There's very little maintenance that's required. You're not getting oil changes. You're not changing timing belts or adjusting timing belts. You're not dealing with transmission failures. You also have an energy source that is stable and affordable. This is the world we live in my imaginary world for a second, okay? Now, Mr. Speaker, I want you to imagine that I am now going to pitch to you why we should transition from EVs to gas vehicles. This is my pitch to you, okay? So for starters, okay, there's no charging when you wake up in the morning. You might wake up and that car is empty. So now you got to go and find a gas station somewhere to fill it up. So now you're pulling a hose out of a gas station, pumping flammable fuel into your vehicle. So you're standing there pumping fuel into your vehicle, okay? Now, also I want you to think about there, Mr. Speaker, the maintenance involved. So instead of an EV that has literally no maintenance, you now suddenly have a vehicle that has hundreds of moving parts, okay? You have an engine that thousands of times a minute is having little miniature explosions in there in order to drive the engine to drive. This is my pitch to you, Mr. Speaker, okay? And in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, every once in a while, every 5,000, 10,000 kilometers, you're going to have to get an oil change, Mr. Speaker. You're going to have to periodically get a new spark plug. You're going to have have belts, pumps, filters. Everything's going to have to be changed. And in addition to this, Mr. Speaker, the vehicles are louder. They make more noise on our streets. Oh, and by the way, there's going to be this pipe at the back of the vehicle that spews out toxic gases for all of us to breathe in. Okay, this is my pitch to you to move away from EVs, okay? Oh, and there's also the cost argument of the fuel. Rather than that stable, predictable cost of electricity, instead you're going to have to get your fuel based on global prices that are set by global influences. And in addition to that, you're going to have thousands of dollars that you're going to spend in repairs and changes. And the budgets are going to be completely unpredictable. My point here is, Mr. Speaker, that if I was to stand here and try to pitch to you why we should move away from EVs to gas vehicles, it would be absolutely absurd. But yet that's the place that we find ourselves in. We find ourselves in a place where we have a political party that for most measures used to be fairly progressive as it related to the environment and embracing change, who seems to have only adopted one thing from that former party, and that's the word conservative. Yep. All they want to do is conserve and make sure that we cannot evolve or transition at all. Mr. Speaker, there's something called the innovation curve. And the innovation curve is basically a bell curve that will tell you at what point in various different technologies you are currently at. So at the beginning of the curve is your 0 to 2% range. And people who buy into a new innovation at the bottom of that curve are called innovators. These are the people that have the resources to do it, that buy certain technologies because they enjoy and like the technologies. Those are the innovators. Next to that, between 2 and 10%, those are the early adopters. These are the people that see and don't quite have the same resources that the innovators have, but are still very interested in the technology, might be motivated from not just an economic perspective, but maybe a social perspective. After that, on the innovation curve, you get to the early majority. This is basically between 10 and 40%. This is when that new technology has penetrated the market between 10 and 40%. So this is when things start to really kick off. This is actually the chasm point, which is at about 7.5%, is considered the tipping point. At that point, it's just a matter of going through the innovation curve. Then after that, from 40 to 70%, you have the late majority. So the late majority are the people who reluctantly buy on, realize, okay, yes, this is going to be more affordable, so therefore I'm going to buy this. I don't really want the technology, but I accept the fact that the rest of the world is embracing it. And then at the end of that, the 70, when you finally get to market penetration of 70 to 100%, you have what are called the laggards. These are the people that would still be using a rotary phone today if they could, but they have no other choice but to use a touch-tone phone because the world evolved around them and there was no choice. The laggards are the conservatives.
I knew it.
These are the people who absolutely refuse to embrace the technological change. Right now, 1 in 5 cars in the world sold is an electric vehicle. That means that along the innovation curve, we are currently at 20%, which is well into the early majority. We have well past the tipping point, Mr. Speaker, and we will not come back from this. So the question is, do you want to be at the forefront of what's going on? Or do you want to be a laggard like conservatives are? Do you just want to wait until you have absolutely no choice but to embrace the technology that the rest of the world around you has already concluded is the only path forward? And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, my position on this is that we have the opportunity to be at that forefront. We have the opportunity to have some of that investment happening right in our country so that we can be outputting that to the rest of the world so that we're exporting it instead of just importing it. Now, I know that the argument from the Conservatives is going to be, oh, yeah, but there's very few cars and only 1 or 2 in Canada are EVs, and they're going to come up with all these red herrings, like they always do, these red herrings, as though they're somehow trying to conserve, again, in the name of their political party, conserve this idea that it is impossible to evolve and it is impossible for things to change. We have the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to be able to do this, to be able at the forefront, to be able to actually participate in the change of the type of vehicle that is inevitably coming. As I told you, Mr. Speaker, we are well into past the tipping point. This is not a matter of if. This is a matter of when.
I'll feel better knowing that I cut that asshole off. What a prick. I'm sorry, like, it's kind of news and politics mostly here, but Mark Gerritsen is one of the biggest V's you're ever going to find. Like, what a coward and a loser, and he's stupid. Like, he read all of that from a script. He's not thinking. He's just talking shit. God damn these liberals.
Founder of the Hero Lodge.
Doesn't get better.
a retreat in the Northwest Territories that he funds from sales of his book. He also received the minister's commendation. I'd like to thank him. Jocelyn Demetre is a hero who every day pursues his mission to serve.
The honourable member for Fleetwood Port Kells.
Mr. Speaker, we are all heartbroken by the horrific attack at the Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. No parent should ever have to experience the loss of a child. I want to join members of the House in sharing my grief for the 9 lives lost in Tumbler Ridge on Tuesday, and to pray for the quick recovery for all the injured survivors. I also want to thank the first responders for their professionalism, which doubtlessly saved many lives. As the people of Tumbler Ridge feel the weight of their heavy loss, I want them to know that this House and this nation stands with them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Canada's housing market is sending alarming signals. New home sales in the GTA have fallen to their lowest point in 45 years, putting up to 100,000 jobs at risk. Across major markets, sales are down sharply, while builders report layoffs, and there is growing concern about their ability to stay afloat. At the same time, home ownership among Canadians 30 to 34 years old has fallen significantly over the past decade, and new housing supply is failing to keep pace with population growth. Nearly 9 in 10 Canadians now express concerns for a housing affordability, and many young people are considering leaving their communities because home ownership feels out of reach. Without action, an entire generation now risks being locked out of home ownership in their own communities. Young Canadians deserve policies that increase housing supplies. When will the Liberals collaborate with us and remove barriers to construction so we can restore the dream of home ownership for young people in this country again?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. The honourable member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today as a British Columbian to express my deepest sympathy for the people of Tumbler Ridge. Innocent lives were lost in an unimaginable tragedy that has shaken a small and deeply connected community to its core. To the families, friends, classmates, teachers, and first responders, you carry a heavy burden of grief that is almost impossible to bear. Nothing can replace the beautiful lives that were taken. They matter, and they will never be forgotten. And in this country, when tragedy strikes one community, it touches us all. Canadians don't turn away. We draw closer. We stand together. We support and love one another. And that is who we are, and that is what it means to be Canadian.
The honourable member for Niagara South.
Mr. Speaker, American protectionism is hammering our auto sector, yet this Liberal government has announced a $2.3 billion EV subsidy for vehicles built in the United States. That is not leadership, it's economic capitulation. Donald Trump has been clear he wants every Canadian auto job moved south. Under the Liberals, 5,000 Canadian auto workers have already lost their jobs. Plants are idled. Families are hurting. Yet the government is prepared to let Canadian tax dollars subsidize American factories during the economic fight of our lives. In Niagara, a brand new EV plant was completed but never opened because the market never materialized. Another major EV battery facility is being built right now in a precariously murky market. Conservatives believe in one simple, non-negotiable principle. Canadian dollars are for Canadian jobs, full stop. Not to bankroll foreign factories, not to ship opportunity across the border, and certainly not to export our paychecks, our plants, or our prosperity.
L'honorable député de Pontiac, Kitigan.
The honourable member for Pontiac, Kitigan, Zibi.
Mr. Speaker, in this tragic week for our country, my heart is also with the people of Kitigan, Zibi. The community is grieving an unimaginable loss when they lost 2 of their children. A loss that every parent every family, every member of this strong and deeply caring community feels today. To the people of Kiriga and Zibi, I want to say this. You are not alone. We stand with you. We're mourning with you. À la famille et au...
To the family and loved ones, our thoughts and our prayers are with you. As you start out on this path of both grief and healing, we walk with you, Miigwech.
The Honourable Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, this past Tuesday, innocence was lost. Not expecting the unimaginable, horrific events that would take place that day, parents packed lunches and sent their children to school. Precious lives were taken and many others were injured in an act of devastating, brutal, and senseless violence. Mr. Speaker, long after the political statements are made and the flags are raised and the cameras are gone, this day must forever be etched in our hearts and minds, because the families in Tumbler Ridge are forever changed. And they're now facing unimaginable grief. The grief of silent classrooms, of empty seats around the dinner table, of parents replaying the last goodbye, wishing they had held on to their child just a little bit longer, or told them that they loved them. The sorrow that we feel is almost too heavy to bear. On behalf of the families in my riding of Caribou Prince George, many of whom, like mine, have friends and relatives in Tumbler Ridge, I extend our deepest condolences. To the students whose sense of safety has forever been shaken and lives forever changed, we are here for you. To the teachers whose courage and selflessness saved lives. To the first responders who ran towards danger to protect others, and to the nurses and healthcare workers who treated the wounded, you are truly heroes, and we owe you a debt of gratitude forever. It is on us as a nation to wrap the community of Tumbler Ridge in our collective arms, to lift them up, hold them in our hearts, and to never forget. To my colleagues, hold your loved ones a little tighter today, and never miss an opportunity to tell them you love them. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, Tuesday's tragic events at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School have left a community devastated. My heart is with the families grieving unimaginable loss. I'm wishing love and strength to those who were injured, and with the students, staff, and residents who are now trying to process what happened. No community should have to experience this kind of violence. I want to acknowledge the courage and professionalism of all first responders, educators, and local officials who acted swiftly to protect others and respond in a moment of crisis. On behalf of Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, I extend our deepest condolences to everyone affected. We stand with the people of Tumbler Ridge and all British Columbians, and indeed all Canadians, at this heartbreaking time.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the official opposition, I would like to reiterate the messages of condolences and support from this House to the victims who are still fighting for their lives, for those whose lives were cut short, and for their families, and for the community still reeling from the senseless shooting in Tumbler Ridge, BC. Je souhaite réitérer le message de...
I wish to repeat the condolences and support of this House to those families affected, those whose lives were tragically taken. Our condolences and thoughts to the very shaken community.
As to the support being provided, and share any news that would be appropriate as this investigation proceeds.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et pour la question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable colleague for his question.
Been grieving since the horrific events of Tuesday, and nowhere is that grief more deeply felt than in the community of Tumbler Ridge itself. The residents have come together to support each other in this time of indescribable pain, and obviously, Mr. Speaker, we want to assure them they are not alone. The Minister of Public Safety is in Tumbler Ridge working with colleagues, and including the Member of Parliament, working with provincial and municipal partners to hear directly from the community and coordinating with those levels of government. Service Canada officials are planning to be present very soon on the ground as well, and we expect that further updates will be provided from the RCMP as information becomes available and as their investigation progresses. Finally, Mr. Speaker, at the invitation of the Mayor of Tumbler Ridge, the Prime Minister will be traveling to the community on Friday to attend a vigil in memory of the victims of this week's tragic shootings, and the Prime Minister has invited leaders of all parties to accompany him to the community. Mr. Speaker, this has been a dark week in the history of our country, and I know we will all, working together, get through this, and we continue to send our heartfelt best wishes and sympathies to the people of Tumbler Ridge.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
I thank the Minister for that update. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian dream of home ownership is fading for too many young Canadians. Despite lots of announcements, the actual results from the Liberal housing plan is downright depressing. Home ownership among 30 to 34-year-olds has fallen to 52%. New home sales are down from 45% in the GTA and 56% in Vancouver. In fact, the government's own housing agency is predicting that new home starts will fall, not increase, by more than 18% for the next 3 years. It's clear more bureaucracy isn't the answer. When will the government adopt the Conservative plan to kickstart home building by removing the GST on all new homes and restore the dream of home ownership for young Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government cares deeply about affordability for young Canadians, and that's why before the House right now is the Build Canada Homes Act. Build Canada Homes is about strengthening Canada's future by creating a modern, resilient housing industry. We are building an industry that protects our economy, empowers our workers, and gives Canadians, especially young Canadians, the affordable housing they need. The Build Canada Homes Act is before this House. We hope the members opposite will support it.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, the government's own data shows that building bureaucracy doesn't actually get results. But the Liberals also have it backwards on the auto sector. In the last 10 years of the Liberal government, the number of vehicles produced in Canada has fallen from 2.3 million cars to 1.2 million. Their plan forced working Canadians to send their tax dollars to subsidize the purchase of EVs that most Canadians cannot afford, and the vast majority of which of those EVs sold in Canada are not made in Canada. That means some of the biggest winners of this subsidy program are American auto workers. Instead of forcing Canadian workers to subsidize foreign-made vehicles, why not adopt the Conservative plan and remove the GST on all new vehicles?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
I would like first and foremost to extend my, of course, prayers and heart to the victims and families in Tumbler Ridge, and know that this government is in support of those affected. Mr. Speaker, I would like to remind my colleague that the money that is going to be supported in EV incentives is actually for Canadians, at a time where we need to make sure that affordability is at the core of everything we do as a government. And that is why Canadians need to be able to have access to more money to afford the right cars, including those made in Canada. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the number of cars manufactured in Canada has decreased by half compared to 2016, and over 5,000 jobs have been lost. To add insult to injury, the Prime Minister has introduced an auto strategy that subsidizes EVs made in foreign countries. However, on this side of the House, we have a better idea. Why not ease the burden on Canadian workers and taxpayers by cutting these subsidies for EVs manufactured abroad? Do they think it's a good idea? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, what is a good idea is our auto strategy. Our auto strategy is welcomed and applauded by the industry, by the industry's workers, by all those who want to make sure that they are employed today, tomorrow, and in 10 years in that sector. The world is moving toward electrification of transportation. We need to modernize. We need to go in that direction, and that's why we have our auto strategy. Why are they ideologically opposed to not only affordability, but also electric transportation? The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. So does that mean that the global market is doing well and that that Canadian market is not? Now, Mr. Speaker, Quebec City, as we know, has always been a tight-knit community, a place where you can buy a house, raise a family in total safety. But now, Mr. Speaker, we must say that the Liberals have increased immigration so much that it has become impossible for young people to buy their first home, even in Quebec City. One thing is certain, that doesn't seem to bother the mayor of Quebec City, who celebrates this terrible situation in the Globe and Mail. Will the Minister of Immigration finally admit that the disproportionate immigration levels imposed on Quebec are preventing young Quebecers from buying a home and starting a family? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's ironic to hear the member talking about affordability. The mandate of Build Canada Homes is to build affordable homes all over the country. There are sectors going through tough times right now, like steel, lumber, aluminum. We are going to protect industries, protect jobs, and we are going to build homes that are affordable to people. There are also a lot of helpful NGOs. Will they stand up for their constituents in their ridings and vote for the budget, Mr. Speaker? That's the real question. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. I don't think she understood my question. She should read an article published yesterday. In the article, Étienne Alexandre Beauregard, who's a young Quebec intellectual, warned that the war on cars, radical environmentalism, and overly restrictive immigration levels are changing Quebec's unique identity. Young people can no longer afford to build a home, and Quebec City's Liberal MPs, just like the mayor of Quebec, refuse to face the facts. Can the Minister of Immigration finally admit that by exceeding Quebec's intake and integration capacity for immigrants, her Liberal government has caused house prices to skyrocket, preventing young people from becoming homeowners? The Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, day after day, what the Conservatives have for us is slogans. They don't have a plan. They don't have suggestions. All they do is block things. Canadians expect that their members of parliament stand up to defend their interests. We have a plan. Our plan is Budget 2025, which is still stuck in committee being blocked. We want to have a strong economy today, a strong economy tomorrow, and we want to support workers going through tough times. So will the Conservatives support us and work with us, setting their ego aside? Once again, I, the Speaker, am standing. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, according to the government, 85,000 pensioners are experiencing issues with their old age security benefits because of the CURAM software. The government has been aware of this since June. Still today, they refuse to take action. Meanwhile, the cost of CURAM has skyrocketed. It went from $1.75 billion to over $6 billion. 85,000 Canadians are suffering from a software that has a cost overrun of $5 billion. But the Liberals feel that everything is fine and dandy. Our patience has run out. Will the Prime Minister order a commission of inquiry on CURAM? The Honourable Minister. This project was actually under budget. Over 7 million seniors are now receiving their benefits on time through a modern system. The total cost of CURAM is the cost for 4 distinct projects. $1.75 billion was the amount for that project, and $6.6 billion was the amount approved for the total duration of the project. If the member knows of anyone affected, she can give us their names and we will help them. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the government's own numbers estimate that 85,000 retirees are affected by QRAM issues, but the ministers tell us that we can give them the names of those who are affected if there are problems. There are 85,000 people experiencing problems, according to the government's own estimates. And the cost overrun for the software ballooned from $1.75 billion to $6.6 billion. And the government says, oh, no, that's not a cost overrun. They tell us it includes the cost of inflation and contingency planning. Inflation, Mr. Speaker. When will they set up a commission of inquiry? The Honourable Minister of Families and Employment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every day I say the same thing. Our old system was very old. We invested to modernize our system, and the vast majority of benefit recipients have no problems. If there are any unresolved cases, the minister and the office, we are working with them to quickly solve their problems. And if the minister would like to hear more about that, I'd be happy to discuss it. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Well, isn't it wonderful, Mr. Speaker? QRAM, the software, was supposed to cost $1.7 billion. Now it's up to $6.6 billion, which is a cost overrun of $5 billion. But according to the Liberals, it's not a cost overrun. No, they say that the initial contracts had a lower amount because things cost more now, maybe inflation. They really take us for fools. And there are many issues in Quebec. All right, well, there are limits. There are some limits.
L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've worked very well with the MP opposite, and I invite him to come and be briefed on the QRAM system. As we've been saying in the House, this is a very old system that needed modernization. In fact, one of the aspects of modernization is people can now apply for their benefits online without personal assistance. That's going to relieve the load on the entire department. And Mr. Speaker, 7.5 million people have transitioned to this new system without problems. For those urgent cases that are stuck in the queue, we will make sure they get their benefits urgently. We can do that within 48 hours, Mr. Speaker. Please send us the names.
The Honourable Member for Elgin St. Thomas, London South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The dream of home ownership is now a fantasy for more and more young Canadians. 93% of them are saying that they are concerned about the state of housing. Nearly half of them believe they will have to leave their own communities because they can't afford to live there. The government's own housing agency says home building will drop over the next 3 years and prices will go up even more. But I've got good news for the Liberals. We have a solution. A Conservative government would remove the GST on new homes under $1.3 million to make them more affordable. Why won't the Liberals do it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, I have good news for the Conservatives. There are two bills before this House that they can support that improve affordability for young Canadians. The first is the Budget Implementation Act, which brings in the first-time home ownership GST rebate. The second thing it brings in is housing infrastructure that brings down the cost of housing. Wow. And on top of that, they can support the Build Canada Homes Act, which is catalyzing modern methods of construction and creating jobs for young Canadians.
Excellent. The Honourable Member for Elgin St. Thomas, London South.
Mr. Speaker, the only thing these Liberals are building is false hope and bureaucracy. Liberal house flippers and penthouse dwellers profit while young Canadians pay the price. On this side of the House, we listen to the experts. The London Home Builders Association told me this week that builders have to spend tens of thousands of dollars per home just on red tape and regulations. Every dollar spent on bureaucracy pushes homes further out of reach for young Canadians. Ontario lost 10,000 home building jobs last year because no one is able to build. When will the Liberals reverse course, cut the red tape, and scrap the GST on homes for families?
Exactly. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I know the members' community I know is riding very well. They expect better than hurling insults. That's not a way to get things done in this House of Commons, Mr. Speaker. The point is, and he talks about the London Home Builders Association, It's good. We met this week as well. They talked about, among other things, the Housing Accelerator Fund, which in St. Thomas alone is leading to duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, mid-rise apartments, and row houses. We're going to continue in that vein, working with municipalities, because we're going to get things done for Canadians and not play games.
The honourable member for York Centre.
Speaker, because of the Liberals, the dream of home ownership is fading for young Canadians. According to CMHC, new housing starts will drop every year for the next 3 years. Nearly half of Canadians say they have to move out of the community they grew up in because they can't afford a home. Instead of incentivizing new construction, the Liberals are building a fourth housing bureaucracy called Build Canada Homes. For what? Why won't the Liberals adopt our Conservative plan, remove the GST of all new homes, and get construction going in Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. More good news. Build Canada Homes is delivering affordable housing for Canadians. In just 100 days, they have secured landmark agreements with the provinces and the cities.
Wow.
Advanced building on 6 federal lands. They're lining up thousands of affordable homes, grounds with shovels in the ground very soon. And over the past month alone, they have projects underway in Nova Scotia, Quebec, Ontario, and they're setting forth on delivering 7,500 new homes.
Wow.
This is how we catalyze a new home building industry.
Excellent.
And you know what? Keep the momentum going. Support Build Canada Homes Act.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for York Centre.
The only thing the Liberals are building is a fourth housing agency. More desk jobs for Liberal insiders and more Liberal waste. But CMHC is telling them their housing plan is dead on arrival. New housing starts will fall every year for the next 3 years. Builders are laying off workers, and Build is warning that 100,000 construction jobs are now at risk. So instead of building a fourth government agency, why won't they adopt our Conservative plan, remove the GST of all new construction so young people can afford to buy a home?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I wish that the Conservatives knew more about construction. It seems what they know about is obstruction. Mr. Speaker, if these Conservatives cared about building homes for young Canadians, they would pass the 2 bills that we have before the House right now. They would pass our Budget Implementation Act, and they would pass our Build Canada Homes Act, because those are the tools that are getting shovels in the ground right across Canada for the next generation of young Canadians who need affordable homes.
The honourable member for Langley Township, Fraser Heights.
Under this Liberal government, the Canadian dream of home ownership is rapidly fading for young people. CMHC reports that housing starts are actually going to be down over the next 3 years by up to 18% compared to last year. So why don't the Liberals just adopt the Conservative plan to eliminate GST on all new housing construction up to $1.3 million and help restore the dream of home ownership for young Canadians?
Yeah, right. That's the camper van.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, thoughts and prayers for the community of Tumbler Ridge. That's a party that's not serious about housing. Their leader called middle-class housing shacks, co-op housing Soviet style. Yeah. There's members on that side that mocked modular homes. Wow. And to cap it all off, that leader told his members not to advocate for housing programs in their ridings that would have helped their ridings. On this side of the House, we're serious about building housing. Budget 2025 is going to deliver housing like we've not seen built in generations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Langley Township, Fraser Heights.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that answer is completely unacceptable. The Canadian Home Owners Association, Builders Association, says that 5 years ago, new housing starts in the ownership market stood at 69%, the rest being in the rental market. Last year, that number had dropped down to 49%. So despite all the nice talk, clearly the Liberal plans are not helpful for prospective new buyers. So again, why don't they just adopt our plans and help restore the dream of homeownership once again for Canadians?
Well done. Great job, Jacob. Great job.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, our big focus is to build as many housing as possible. We're going to build that housing through Canada Build Homes. We're going to build that housing on federal lands, just like in my community in Ottawa Centre, where we're repurposing federal buildings, we're repurposing federal lands to build housing, and we will do that across the country. Some slogans is not going to cut it, as we see from the opposition. They need to stop obstructing. They need to pass Bill C-20 so we can start building housing across this land.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill South.
The Canadian dream of home ownership is slipping away from young Canadians. The government's own housing agency says housing starts will fall for the next 3 years, going down as much as 18% by 2028, while prices keep going up. After years of Liberal policies that drove up costs and slowed down constructions, buyers can't buy and builders can't build. And the only solution the Liberals can come up with is to build a fourth housing bureaucracy. When will this government admit that Liberal rhetoric and bureaucracies don't build homes and finally scrap the GST on all new homes, incentivize building, and restore the dream of home ownership?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's regrettable the member opposite is in support of Build Canada Homes. I was just in his riding, where we actually announced a project, and I spoke with the residents that are living in affordable housing there, and they talked about how important it was. So we know that with Budget 2025, we're working to accelerate construction. We're cutting delays. We're increasing permitting capacity. We're working with local governments to get more homes built. While we're doing that, they're voting against expanding mortgage rate criteria for young Canadians. They're voting against the first-time savings account, and they're voting against the GST credit for first-time home buyers. Why?
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, next Tuesday, Quebec will attend a UNESCO conference and continue its efforts to protect cultural diversity from the hegemony of web giants. Quebec will join forces with European countries to ensure that the 2005 UNESCO Convention, which protects all cultures in the context of globalization, also applies to the digital world. But it's not a done deal, because since Quebec is not yet a country, Canada votes on our behalf. And last June, Canada did not vote in favour of adopting a binding protocol. This time, Mr. Speaker, will Canada reconsider? The Honourable Minister of Culture, Canadian Culture and Identity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It goes without saying that my predecessor at the last meeting really did a good job. I don't have anything that I can reveal yet, but we're on a similar wavelength. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Well, you see, Mr. Speaker, Canada votes on behalf of Quebec at UNESCO, and last June, Canada did not vote in favour of a binding protocol to protect our cultural sovereignty from web giants. Worse still, the government then proceeded to scrap the digital services tax that would have forced the GAFAM group to pay a minimum of royalties that could have supported our culture and our media organizations. Next week, Canada can take a step in the right direction by supporting the principle of a protocol. The entire cultural industry and the government of Quebec are counting on that. Will Canada vote to protect our culture? A yes or a no, particularly yes, would be much better than the answer we just got, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, if the member across the way really wanted to support artists and creators in Canada, he would vote yes, as he's telling us to do, but he would vote yes to our budget. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Lévis. The Phoenix fiasco is back to haunt us. The Phoenix pay system deprived thousands of civil servants of their pay for weeks, for months. We all remember that. Today, there's the CureM software. The Liberals are creating a Phoenix fiasco for seniors, but on a larger scale, according to federal employees. This project was supposed to cost $1.7 billion. The bill has skyrocketed now up to $6.6 billion. 93% of employees give the project a failing grade, Mr. Speaker. Why do the Liberals insist on repeating the same IT mistakes, billion after billions of dollars, at the expense of retirees, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors. We're modernizing a very old system. If we had not done anything or taken action, that would have been very problematic for seniors and their benefits. Currently, mistakes are being corrected and retroactive payments are guaranteed. If there are any individual cases, members across the way can give us their names and we will address those cases. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Lévis. Well, that's a very embarrassing response, Mr. Speaker. There are retirees who've been waiting for their benefits for 9 months. It's shameful. Ministers are hiding the truth from Canadians. Ministers and public servants are being instructed not to mention the name of the QRM software. Why is the minister more interested in hiding her own incompetence than in helping our seniors receive their benefits on time? They really need those benefits, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, of course, seniors need to receive their pension. And we will, of course, ensure that. Over 7 million people are receiving their pension benefits through the software. The minister has been reassuring people every day, but the opposition just keeps asking the same question day after day, and we keep telling them the same thing. If they have any names, they should send them to us, or people can speak directly to Service Canada. The minister offered members across the way a briefing session. They should take the minister up on that and learn more about the QRM software.
The honourable member from Montmorency. Mr. Speaker, like across Quebec, families are spending more than 30% of their income to keep a roof over their heads. Vacancy rates are extremely low and housing insecurity continues to rise. Not knowing whether you'll be able to pay your rent or not causes stress and anxiety and constant pressure on the mental health of our young people and families. After 10 years of Liberal policies that have caused housing costs to skyrocket, how much longer will families have to live in uncertainty before this government takes real action to increase the housing supply and keep prices down? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're not taking Canadians for fools. They know that who is working for them in terms of affordability, Mr. Speaker. They don't have a plan or a solution, just rhetoric. On our end, we've already had agreements across Quebec. We had one with Nova Scotia as well, and Nunavut. We are going to accelerate building construction for affordable homes, and that is the mission of Build Canada Homes. We're going to do with Canadian supplies, with Canadian workers. We're going to support our industry, build more homes. And the question is, are they going to really be there for their citizens? Thank you. The honourable member for Montmorency, Charlevoix. The Liberals like to pat each other on the back, but the CMHC now forecasted nearly 20% drop in housing starts by 2028, and that means fewer homes, even less supply, and even more pressure on prices. Meanwhile, 93% of our young people say that they're concerned about the housing situation in the country, and 86% of builders fear for the survival of their companies. The industry itself is talking about a lost decade for home ownership. If the Liberals are going to take inspiration from our ideas every week, why don't they adopt our plan to cut GST on all new homes to boost construction and give young people to have the dream of ownership again? Mr. Speaker, we know that young Canadians are going through tough times right now with the cost of living and the cost of rent. But the good news is Build Canada Homes is already seeing results. In the first 100 days, we've moved to action. We've established major agreements with some provinces, and these projects won't be able to move forward until the opposition supports our budget and C-15 and the bill on Build Canada Homes. We need their cooperation. If they're really here for their citizens, they need to vote with us. Thank you. The honourable member for Levis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian dream of home ownership is fading for young Canadians. In its new report, the CMHC indicates that housing starts in 2028 could fall by as much as 18.1% over last year. The Canadian Home Builders Association says that current conditions will create a lost decade for home ownership in Canada. When will the government adopt our plan to stimulate residential construction by cutting the GST on all new homes so that our young people can once again hope to have their own homes? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With Build Canada Homes, we're responding to what Canadians really need. They want us to build homes that meet their needs and budgets. And all the member across the way is doing is talking about cutting GST on all homes. Just get rid of the tax, they say. I don't imagine how they could expect to govern if they're just obstructing. So, but we do have a real plan. It's called the Budget 2025, and we hope that they will approve it. Thank you.
The honourable member for New Westminster, Burnaby Mallardville.
Mr. Speaker, there has been an outpour of grief and support across this country following the Tumbler Ridge tragedy that occurred on Tuesday. This House has come together to honour the innocent lives lost. Can the Secretary of State for Combating Crime please reflect on the mass shooting in BC?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, the nation is heartbroken by this tragic shooting in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. Our hearts are with the families and friends and loved ones of all the victims, and with the little girl who is currently fighting for her life. May we all keep her in our prayers. We are forever grateful for the speed and courage of the RCMP and all first responders on that day. Their actions and bravery have saved lives. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Despite the Liberals signing on to $52 billion to create an EV supply chain in Canada, the vast majority of EVs bought here are not made here. And now, despite the massive government subsidies, the auto companies are recording multi-billion-dollar losses on EVs and abandoning or delaying EV projects. But the Liberals now are doubling down with their new $2.3 billion EV subsidy, where Canadian workers will be forced to subsidize the purchase of foreign-made EVs, including EVs made in the United States. At a time like this, Mr. Speaker, it's unconscionable. Will the Liberals reverse course and stop Canadian tax dollars from funding the American-made EVs?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Of course, we believe in affordability, and we believe that Canadians can have access to EV incentives up to $5,000 for a car, up to $50,000, and also for Canadian EVs, because obviously we believe that the future of the industry is towards electrification. Recently, there were more EV cells in Europe than gas combustion cars. And at the same time, we know that in the next 5 years, 40% of all the cars worldwide will be electrified. So our plan is to make sure that we bring our industry at the forefront of innovation and that good jobs are created here.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, the bottom line is the American tariffs have cost 5,000 jobs in Canada's auto sector and tens of thousands more jobs in the manufacturing sector across the board. And meanwhile, the Liberals created a $2.3 billion taxpayer-funded program that will subsidize the purchase of American-made EVs to the direct benefit of the American auto sector when they're trying to destroy our auto sector. This is wrong, and the minister can easily rectify this. Will she do that?
Honourable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
I have a lot of time for my colleague, a lot of respect for her, but she also knows that our auto industry is facing obviously important challenges, but it took months for the Conservatives to actually denounce the U.S. tariffs on auto. And we know that the entire sector is integrated within North America, Canada, U.S., Mexico. Now, when she's talking about EVs made in the U.S., she has to take into account, and Conservatives need to take into account, that Canadian auto parts are part of these EVs. Is she going after the Canadian auto parts workers all across Ontario? That's my question.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
On Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening, I was in Toronto with the Unifor Skilled Trades Council conference. Those are the men and women that actually work in our auto plants to make sure the machinery and equipment works. And when I told them that their tax dollars were going to go to subsidize the purchase of American EVs, they were outraged and disgusted. Actually, they couldn't believe it was happening. So it's simple. Why would Canadian tax dollars be going to subsidize American EVs when Donald Trump is trying to kill our auto industry? Will they show they care about auto workers by cancelling the rebates for American EVs?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, finally, my colleague met with the Unifor workers. It took him months to do that. We've been in contact with Unifor since the get-go. before even U.S. tariffs were imposed. We've been in contact with them to make sure that we would be working together as one Team Canada, because it took also months for the Conservatives to actually denounce the U.S. tariffs on the workers. We're there with the industry, from industry, businesses, to auto workers, unions. Everybody's in favor of the auto strategy, including Premier Ford. Why are they?
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
I have met with auto workers for the past 2 years. It's how we came up with our policy to take the HST off of all Canadian autos. It's actually the union workers' idea. What isn't their idea is to give their tax dollars to Donald Trump's America to build American vehicles. And these Liberals will not answer this question. Why are they giving these subsidies to EVs made in America when Donald Trump's stated goal is to destroy the Canadian auto industry? It's embarrassing, it's disgraceful, it's disgusting. They should look Canadian auto workers in the eye and apologize, but I know they won't.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I've known the colleague for a long time. He does have passion, I'll grant him that. Sometimes that passion leads him to act a bit too quickly. He forgot to talk to unions, Mr. Speaker. Earlier this week, he and other Conservatives raised the situation of workers at CAMI in Ingersoll, talking about the withholding of severance. What he forgot to do is actually talk to Unifor. Local 88 in Ingersoll came out with a statement. I'll review it for him, Mr. Speaker. We can look at it together. They said that their political posturing is unacceptable and they should not take advantage of the working people of Ingersoll. That's a direct quote, Mr. Speaker. It's unacceptable.
The honourable member for Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Speaker, this government's new EV strategy fails to put Canadian workers and automakers first. How is allowing 49,000 Chinese-made EVs into Canada and subsidizing the purchase of American-made EVs going to help the laid-off workers at GM in St. Catharines, who worry about the future of their engine plant? GM has been in St. Catharines since 1929. Will the Liberals support our motion to stop forcing Canadian workers to subsidize foreign-made vehicles and remove the GST on Canadian-made vehicles?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we stand with our auto workers, with unions, with businesses that communities are built around, but they are also standing with us. Auto workers, mayors, union leaders, premiers. Premier Ford called this a great auto strategy. But let me read this to the House. The president of Unifor Local 200 in Windsor, who chairs Unifor's Auto Council, says he's ecstatic over the measures put in place as part of Canada's auto strategy. He says, we're putting a third shift on. We want to make sure that third shift stays. This incentive is so important to our community. I was ecstatic to see the government put that in place.
The honourable member for Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Speaker, that member's not talking to the Unifor members in St. Catharines, who had an EV battery engine that was planned there, and GM moved it out because there's no sales. This government of Canada should not be subsidizing American-made EVs using Canadian taxpayers' money, especially when U.S. actions have already cost 5,000 Canadian auto worker jobs. Will the Liberals simply join us and finally put Canadians first and support our Conservative motion to remove the GST on Canadian-made vehicles?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
I know my colleague is fighting hard to change the narrative, but the auto strategy has been already out for a week, and everybody is in favor of it. So, including Unifor workers, of course, that are working at GM in St. Catharines, including Premier Ford, a very strong Conservative, which we all know, including, of course, the industry, auto parts workers, everyone. That's right. Why? Because fundamentally it's a good plan. We know that the industry is going towards electrification. Capital is following that innovation. And so we won't hold our workers back. We will protect them.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, after months of pressure from Conservatives, this government is finally slamming the brakes on its ideological electric vehicle mandate. But their new EV rebate scheme won't protect Canadian auto workers. It's just going to subsidize Tesla and send taxpayer money straight across the border. The government's gone from elbows up to selling out. They're driving other countries' economies forward, all while leaving Canadian workers in the dust. This Liberal government's policies are eroding our domestic vehicle manufacturing sector and the livelihoods of Canadian workers. When will they finally get behind the wheel for Canada instead of selling out to Donald Trump and Elon Musk?
Honorable Minister.
Honorable Minister.
Speaker, what the Conservatives need to understand right now is industry needs predictability and clarity. At a time where, indeed, there's a revision of the USMCA. We were able to provide that. And by providing that, now we're having conversation with German automakers, with Korean automakers, with Chinese automakers that want to invest in Canada and create good jobs. Why are they fundamentally against what the market is saying, which is this is a good plan and Canada is a great destination to invest?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Essex.
Speaker, Essex Windsor's auto sector isn't just assembly lines. It's mold makers, tool shops, part suppliers, and automation firms. The Liberals promise to protect their jobs, yet they're handing out money to American EV companies, importing Chinese EVs, and costing thousands of families their livelihoods. EV policy was meant to protect workers. So will the Liberals stop forcing Canadian workers to subsidize foreign-made vehicles and remove the GST on new Canadian-made vehicles?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The Industry Minister, the Prime Minister, every minister, this entire caucus is devoted to ensuring the well-being and future of the Canadian auto sector and workers, of course. Mr. Speaker, I invite workers, I invite Conservatives to support this government, to continue to ensure that measures are put in place to ensure the future well-being of that sector.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East Stony Creek.
Canadian taxpayers should not be subsidizing American EVs when the U.S. trade conflict has already cost 5,000 Canadian auto manufacturing jobs and 37,000 since this Prime Minister took office. He needs to stop this insult to Hamilton auto workers and work with us to put Canadian auto jobs first. This is a time where the Canadian auto sector is looking for unity and action to stand up to Donald Trump. So will the Liberals join us and support our motion to remove the GST on new Canadian-made vehicles?
Yes. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, of course, if the Conservatives knew a lot about the auto strategy, they would know that we're already supporting the Canadian-made auto sector and the Canadian-made vehicles. That will be for the Dodge Charger, that will be for the Pacifica, and we are convinced that there will be more because we will have more investment in the sector. But they've been asking the same question. I guess that their leader gave them a sheet to read. But fundamentally, what they need to remember is that Canadians are in favor of this because the entire sector is in favor of this. Yeah?
The Honourable Member for Hull-Elmer. Mr. Speaker, a deep wave of sorrow is hitting our country, particularly in Kitigan, ZB, like the member for Pontiac described very eloquently earlier today. 2 young lives were cut short far too soon, leaving their loved ones and their entire community in mourning. Can the Secretary of State for Nature share her thoughts on this tragic incident in Quebec? Thank you. The Honourable Secretary of State. Mr. Speaker, it's already with a very heavy heart that I rise today to address this, my sincerest condolences to the family and loved ones of the victims of Kitigan ZB who are also in Ajnabig. A tragedy like this one, which adds to this already dark week, it is inexplicable. Using children as weapons to hurt others is unexplainable, and I am fully supporting this community and for everyone who is behind them. And all of my colleagues are as well. And with all of those who will have to intervene with this family and their loved ones, We have first responders, the healthcare community. It's really hard to understand the situation. So I'd like you to know that my thoughts are with you. Thank you.
The honourable member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Mr. Speaker, British Columbia is facing a public safety crisis. Extortion is now at record highs, and my community members are living in constant fear. Abbotsford police have been clear. They are calling on elected officials to act urgently and work across party lines to confront these growing threats. Canadian safety matter now. Will the Liberals act today, vote for a Conservative plan supported by the BC NDP Premier to ensure those convicted of serious crimes cannot exploit our refugee system in order to stay in Canada?
Good question.
The Honourable Secretary of State for International Development.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier of the province, the Mayor of Abbotsford, the Police Chief of Abbotsford have all said, please go across party lines, get C2 pass, get C12 pass, get C14. I used to think that maybe it's obstruction that they're doing, but really I think they don't even read the bills. Because if they read the bills, they would know it would be very impactful to pass them, legislate them, and get the tools to the police that need them right away. Thank you.
The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Apparently that minister wasn't around on Tuesday. Mr. Speaker, extortion is real, and newcomers to Canada are the ones that suffer. Here's an example of an extortion letter from Abbotsford. Warning, we are Indian gang members. We want our share from your businesses like protection money. We asking only $2 million in cash. We have links all over. Do not ignore us. It will affect you really bad. We gave you 1 month to decide. Threats like this one are followed by arson, shootings, and murder. And if caught, they claim refugee status. Will this government support our motion to stop people charged with serious crimes from claiming refugee status in order to avoid justice?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is real, and we're taking it very seriously. That's why back in June, we tabled lawful access measures in Bill C2. Those measures would make it possible for police to quickly investigate these types of crimes and child predator crimes as well, Mr. Speaker. It's important for us to give law enforcement the tools that they need to keep up with criminals. And the motion that's been brought forward by the Conservatives is basically moot. And C12, Mr. Speaker, all of the asylum cases that they're referring to would not be allowed.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, contrary to their claims today, everything is not fine, and the Liberal status quo is putting lives in danger. The Liberals, if what they're saying today is true, should have no problem supporting our motion that would stop non-citizen extortionists who shoot up homes in Surrey and in Brampton from filing bogus refugee claims or getting lenient sentences to dodge removal. Why are the Liberals so determined to keep allowing non-citizen extortionists to break the law and stay here?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, the same measures that I referred to on asylum that are in C12 currently in the Senate were originally presented in this House in C2 back in June. Had the Conservatives not obstructed at that time and cooperated with us, those asylum cases that the member is referring to would not be allowed. But good news, Mr. Speaker, that once that Bill C12 in the Senate passes, the claims that have been made will be cancelled, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, great news. We've already seen Build Canada Homes move quickly from promise to progress, delivering real results for Canadians. A great example, Dunn House Phase 2, located in Toronto's Parkdale community, which will provide supportive housing for at-risk seniors. Can the Minister of Jobs and Families, on behalf of the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure, update this House on how this project reflects the government's approach to accelerating affordable housing across the country?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Housing.
I've heard the member from
Davenport over the years, and she is a tireless advocate for seniors and housing across Canada. Our government is working to ensure that seniors can age in place with dignity and the supports they need. Indeed, Dunn House provides rent geared to income units for at-risk seniors in Toronto, which helps them live safely and independently. The Conservatives are asking how many? Well, over the past month alone, we've created 7,500 new homes just in the last month in Nova Scotia, in Quebec, in Ontario. Why are they standing in the way of this program?
The honourable member for Foothills.
Canadian farmers are worried that an announcement by Beijing today means there is no deal to reduce tariffs on canola. On January 16th, the Prime Minister said he's engaged in a new strategic partnership with the People's Republic of China. And I quote, he said, by March 1st, Canada expects China to reduce tariffs on Canadian canola seed by a combined rate of about 15%. Today, Reuters said Beijing has delayed a decision on canola tariffs until March 9th. No decision means no deal. Yeah. Right. Why did the Prime Minister mislead Canadian farmers about having a deal to reduce canola tariffs for Canadian farmers?
Of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Free buckwheat! Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm certainly glad that the opposition is now starting to talk about canola. Mr. Speaker, we went for how long since we returned from China? I never heard a word about canola. The Leader of the Opposition has canola in his new riding. We're working hard. We'll continue to work hard. The lines of communication are open with China, and we'll continue to work with China, and we'll continue to work with every trading partner, Mr. Speaker. I met with the canola farmers last week in Ottawa, and we had a really good meeting, Mr. Speaker, and we'll continue to work with China and the contacts that we have there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is in a mental health crisis, and young people are being hit hardest, yet counselling, therapy and treatment still depend on workplace benefits or the ability to pay in a two-tier system. The PBO confirmed that bringing mental health care under the Canada Health Act and achieving parity with physical health care through Bill C-201 would cost just 1.5% of total public health spending. Will the minister act now and bring mental health care under the Canada Health Act, yes or no?
L'honorable ministre de la...
The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. And he knows very well that the mental health of Canadians is at the heart of our concerns. Health services, including mental health, are under provincial jurisdiction. I work closely with my provincial partners for them to deliver the best service possible for Canadians. And that ends question.
Oh, sorry, the honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, we know foreign interference is a threat to Canadian democracy. It was confirmed by the Hague Commission, and we've taken steps at the federal level for federal elections to deal with the threat of foreign interference. So my question to the honourable minister is there and what is being done now to consider the threat of foreign interference to provincial referenda that could break up this country when we know people in the White House are encouraging separatism? What are we doing to prepare?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, foreign interference in our democracy at any level is unacceptable, and the government has obviously carefully taken notes of the...
No, we need to hear this. The Honourable Government House Leader.
From the top, Mr. Speaker? Yeah. Foreign interference at any level and transnational repression at any level of our democracy is absolutely unacceptable. We, of course, have taken careful note of the recommendations of the Hague Commission, and we will be responding more fully, I and my colleagues, in due course.
You see that every single one of those people in the frame are involved in foreign interference. Every single one of those liberal hack losers. They're all fake MPs looking to destroy your way of life. You think there's a democracy. They know there's not, and they're making sure that that isn't something that gets out to the public. Like, Stephen McKinnon here is rancid. We're going to wrap up right there. Like, tough to watch. This guy, Steve McKinnon, drives me crazy. There's a bunch of assholes. Tim Hodgson, Julie DeBruzen, that asshole that just got up, Julie Zerkowitz. She's always zipping on like a bag of mushrooms or a bunch of gummies or something. They're all a bunch of hack woke losers that just virtual signal. And it's too bad, because I know now I'm just kind of preaching to the choir, and I don't mean to rev up people like to get them pissed off, but I watch a couple of hours of that shit. I am pissed off. And they tap it off with Steve McKinnon. They rub it right in your goddamn face. Like, this guy is a repugnant pig. Like, there's no PR agency that would say, like, oh, put out that guy. He's pretty. He's got a Vulcan skull, a horrid voice. He looks like he stinks, and everything about him is rotten. But they put him up there all the time. House leader. You're not allowed to say he's a fucking moron. Like, he's a disaster and a con man and a coward. He's not a thinker. He's just doing what he's told in the direction, which he knows isn't good for anybody's future, but maybe his own. On a lighter note, Aaron, Canadian Loney, like, share, subscribe. We're getting out. Steve McKinnon gets to me. In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups. The globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
Oh, yeah.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper, bumper, stomper, boo. Tell me, do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole, and I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room.
Bing bong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.